You've found Wickett on Wisconsin, your one-stop podcast for all things Packers, Brewers, Bucks, and the rest of your favorite teams from all over the state of Wisconsin. We're powered by Wisconsin Sports Heroics, online at wisportsheroics.com and the Wisconsin Podcast Association. And now, here's your host, Mike Wickett.
We are mere hours away from the NFL draft. Packers fans trying to figure out if Aaron Rodgers is going to get any help. Will Gutekunst go all Gutekunst? And I'll tell you what, if you can't get enough mock drafts and draft analysis and conversation about guys with upside, then this is the podcast for you because we got more of it. Dan Edwards from wisportsheroics.com, Wisconsin Sports Heroics. My coworker is here with me. Dan, thank you so much for being here, man. Are you sick of mock drafts yet, or are you just eating them up like Zeke Elliott on the field?
I'm kind of both ways because I enjoy doing mock drafts. But yeah, at the same time, Packers Twitter can be a little hectic at times when you see a mock draft at every other tweet when you're going down your feed here. But I'm excited. It's draft week. It's less than 40 hours away, but 7:30 or so. So it should be
as we're recording this on a Tuesday night. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's around at least 48 hours away, and it's the most wonderful time of sports in the year because you are not really expecting a whole lot, but you're expecting a lot of surprises, and at the same time, you're just ready. It's football season between. Actually, really all year.
It's all year, man. The NFL has become a year-long thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And the March is around combine. It's a little tease. You get to figure out how these prospects are, who does this, who does that. And then April comes around and it's like, all right, let's go. I got my popcorn ready. I got beer, wings. It's sort of like just like a tailgating in April.
Real quick, Dan, first of all, if you're new to the podcast, I'm having a beer. That's how we do things.
There we go.
The other thing, Dan, were you involved in the Wisconsin Sports Heroics draft podcast that I was not invited to?
I don't believe I was.
Were you and I shut out of the WI Sports Heroics draft podcast? Did we get? I mean, come on now. Are they shutting the door on us?
How dare they? How dare they? We'll have to talk to Robin and Sarah and Mitch and shout out to Wisconsin Sports Heroics for, honestly, getting my voice out there to be started.
Not enough, man. They didn't want you.
Not enough. And I guess not.
But in all seriousness, I've done a couple of these so far. This is volume 3. And I'm like you, man. I like the draft a lot. And I have 3 kids, so my life is a little different than it was, say, 10 years ago when I was looking at every draft profile and I would watch every single pick. I'll watch all of round 1. I'll probably watch a lot of round 2. Day 3, which is for the real junkies like yourself, the real nerds like I used to be, still am when I can. Day 3 is a lot of fun because it's just pick, and you're filling out, trying to figure out who that one guy is going to be.
Yeah, exactly. It's 2, 3, 4, or even 5 rounds I'm excited for. If I had the job of my life to just sit around and watch the draft, I would be happy. And the old saying goes, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So if I were to be sitting around and watching the NFL draft, seeing who goes where, I'd be set.
Yeah, I feel the same way, man. I absolutely do. And like I said, I am stoked for this. We're going to go through, I'm going to ask Dan, who has been breaking, how many mock drafts have you done, by the way?
Personally, probably around 30 or 40. Well, the thing is, I actually do shout out to Pro Football Focus # non-sponsor. They have their mock draft simulator on their website, and I'm able to see the stats and kind of the average draft position. And you said so yourself, I'm a nerd at this at heart. I'm doing it's not just Packers football, but also Dynasty football. So this is kind of like my first official off season, trying to figure out these prospects, seeing how the landing spots affect their draft position and stuff like that. So I'm doing, like I said, 30, close to maybe even 45 mock drafts. And it takes They don't take that long, really. But
it's like when
as
you
far
fill
as
out 10 different brackets in March. At some point, you're
yeah,
going to nail the pick because you've got 45 different guys at 22 that Green Bay is going to take.
so you're telling me there's a chance?
You're going to get one right. It's like playing 90 lottery tickets. All right, there's a chance
Yeah,
you're going to hit on
exactly.
$5.
But as far as the ones that I've been posting on Twitter and the articles that I've been writing for Wisconsin Sports Heroics, I would say probably close to 3 or 4 actually sitting down, like seriously looking at and considering players that I think would fit perfectly in the Packers scheme, whether it's offensively or defensively. And so, but honestly, yeah, I'm just excited whether or not they pick, these quote unquote my guys, or if they reach for somebody. Yeah, I can understand how that can affect the team or the fans a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
But if it works out, I mean, why not? You know?
Well, Dan, and by the way, you can follow Dan on Twitter at PackerEddie_FF. That's EDDY. We're going to do a couple of things here. We're going to talk about two guys you expect to be there at 22, just the expectation, not high, not low. We're going to talk about a couple of guys you hope they don't reach for that you're hearing in that conversation that would be a reach at 22. But there's always guys that slide for one reason or another. Is there a player or two that you think might just slide to Green Bay at 22? Give me the first one.
Well, my first one, I would have to say Treylon Burks. And, I mean, it's pretty much chalk at this point when you're saying the Packers are going to draft a wide receiver at 22. I mean, there's so much talk this offseason, whether or not the Packers draft 1 or maybe even 2 wide receivers. And just a quick background story and slash joke. I was talking with this fellow Packers fan that I have at my work, and he was saying how he's so excited for the Packers draft this season. 2022 is going to be a great draft. You don't know what to expect. And he was saying he's going to be drafting 2 wide receivers in the first round, the 22 and the 28th spot. I'm like, well, I mean, they haven't drafted a wide receiver since Javon Walker in 2002. So, and get ready to hear that name on Thursday night. I mean, it's pretty much a drinking game at this point.
Yeah, it is.
But I was kind of trolling him, saying, what if they don't draft a wide receiver, but trade up to draft Trevon Walker as the defensive lineman, and he did not have that. So, but yeah, so I'm pretty much going chalk at the first one, saying Treylon Burks out of Arkansas. I've had the chance to actually watch him because I live down here in Arkansas. Spoiler alert. But they only have Arkansas Hogs here playing, and Treylon Burks is pretty much lighting up the draft board. Do I expect him to be there at 22? Yes, because out of the teams that are drafting a wide receiver spot, you're looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, who are, kind of being mock drafted to draft Jameson Williams, maybe Chris Olave. Garrett Wilson's pretty much going to be gone at this point. Drake London, maybe not. But Treylon Burks, he had so much hype this offseason. He had this terrific season going from Arkansas to the NFL draft or the NFL Combine, and he had this very slow 40 time, which was I think 4.58 if I'm not mistaken. But he was very quick to drop below the draft boards, which I quite don't understand, because the 40-yard dash is not the only measurement that scouting teams will be looking at. They have the off-season interviews, they have the interviews at the Combine, they have a lot of other aspects and stuff to take. But with Treylon Burks, he's kind of like that big body receiver that Aaron Rodgers might like. He's 6'2", 225 pounds. Spoiler alert, Alan Lazard, he may not look like it, but he's 6'5" and 225 pounds. So he's an exact almost measurement of Alan Lazard. And they've been having Alan Lazard in not just the slot, but also in the wideout position these past few years. And Treylon Burks, watching his interviews after the games, he has that personality where his football IQ is kind of like how you were saying earlier about how Zeke is just always feeding and eating himself with knowledge. And that type of person yeah, you can look at physicality, you can look at speed, you can look at ball skills, you can look at, route running, you can look at all these things. But with the Green Bay Packers, with Aaron Rodgers throwing you the ball, you're going to have to gain his trust somehow. And with Alan Lazard, we were hearing about this in off season and during the season, even with the team meetings, when he was constantly asking Aaron Rodgers questions. How was I doing this? How was I doing that? Or what I should do with this situation, this and that. With Treylon Burks, he can pretty much just step right in that same role, whereas he's got that big body. He can meet those contested catches. His route running is subpar. Watching him, but Arkansas had a terrible quarterback. I can't figure his name right now, but
it doesn't matter. He wasn't very good.
It doesn't really matter. Yeah, but if you're going from him to Aaron Rodgers, you're going to have to step up your game about how, we don't know for sure if he can run on these other routes.
Is Burks anything besides if they take Burks and if he does slide like you're talking about, and he's projected anywhere from top 9 to 25, but if he does slide to the back end of the Packers at 22, is that a reach or is that a special talent that fell into their lap?
At 22,
because if he doesn't run routes well, and and I don't know how well he can catch, I don't know how well how good his hands are, but is that more of a reach at 22? Because honestly, listening to you, Dan, a guy who has studied Treylon Burks at Arkansas much more than I have, it sounds like the shine is wearing off of him, and he should slide, but it's not like he's a top 5 talent slide. Like, is he worth 22?
He is worth 22. I think he will be there at 22, and he has been flying down the boards. Listening to the media and looking at mock drafts, even his average draft position is 29 at the Pro Football Focus mock draft simulator, which is what I normally use. But at 29 or at 22 or 28 even, I think is not quite a reach. But if you're going off his talent, he has tremendous upside, especially with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball.
Sure.
And working with him in this route running. He had a 4.58 earlier, 40 speed.
The 40 time doesn't bother me as long as it's not over 5 seconds.
Yeah, and his 3-cone was tremendous. Everything else was off the charts. So if you're looking at it this offseason and then drafting him and, him starting day one as the wide receiver 1 for his team, for the Packers, I think he can have a tremendous rookie season even. So I don't think he's a reach at all at 22. And to be quite honest, if they don't draft him at 22, I don't think he'll be there at 28 because his most comparison would be A.J. Brown, with his physicality and route running and getting off, the release of the line of scrimmage. I think he's very comparable to A.J. Brown in that aspect. But the University of Arkansas also did use him as a quote-unquote wide back. So, Deebo Samuel's in the news every day now. He is compared to Deebo Samuel in that aspect as well. So they have Alan Lazard as a motion sweep, but then they not quite jet sweep him, but they use him to block. I think Treylon Burks can be used the same way.
Who's somebody else, maybe not a wide receiver, that you think might slide down the board and be there at 22 that would excite Packers fans?
You said excite Packers fans, and that was the perfect transition. And I honestly believe, not just hearing your voice, but I think you were a really great radio personality, because
I used to be.
Everywhere on Packers Twitter, everywhere, I see Chris Olave.
Does he slide to 22? Because a month ago, he was a mid-20s prospect. Now all I hear is he's going to be gone before 22. Do you think he slides?
I hope he slides, because I think he can fit into the Packers' offensive scheme pretty well as well. Because, if you're looking at Chris Olave's tape, right, and you're writing an analysis of him, trying to describe his, playing ability, his, the way he can fit into a team's offensive scheme, And if you're not using the word smooth, then not to be rude, but I think you're doing it wrong. The guy is a route running technician. He is very precise on his route running.
And you know what, Dan? They just got rid of a guy who was the best route runner in football in Davante Adams because he wanted to get out of town, and that's fine. I'm not even bitter about that.
I understand that. Yeah, no, but he deserved to get paid that much too.
Olave's like 15 pounds lighter than Davante Adams, and I'll bet Davante is the same size that Olave was coming out of college when he came out, 6-7 years ago. So the comparison to me is a very good one. And every time, I think I said this on my last podcast, every time I watched Ohio State, and I hate Ohio State, but every time I watched Ohio State play this year, which was a lot, Olave's always open. I don't know how. He's just always not near anyone. Maybe it's the offense. Maybe it was the quarterback. Maybe it was last year's quarterback in Fields, whatever. But, God, he is always open. And if you're always finding a way to get open, Aaron Rodgers is going to find you.
Yeah, and exactly. That's the exact thing we're talking about, too, is if you're comparing the Davante Adams. Davante Adams is, I think, 6'1", 212 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. Chris Olave is 6 foot, 187.
That's close. That's close now.
It's really close. Yeah. And he ran a 4.39 at the combine. So you're not just talking about speed and quick release off the line of scrimmage, but he can take the top off the defense in the intermediate and deep routes. So comparing to Treylon Burks too, if you're taking him, say Chris Olave is lining up in the left slot and runs a deep post route, Aaron Rodgers loves that pass. So he's going to throw it to you all day, especially if you can take the top off the defense, because if you're looking at the defense and they're doing a too high safety, say one of them comes down to block the run or maybe you take the intermediate route, Chris Olave can do the quick burst, looking like he's going to be doing the medium route, but then doing the double move and going deep, then he's wide open, like you said. And like I said earlier too, it's about gaining Aaron Rodgers' trust. So it's a lot of gaining the trust of Aaron Rodgers, and he can fit it through. I mean, he can throw a dart into the little hole of a doorknob, to be honest. And I admire him for that too. I hope he never leaves. But with Chris Olave, I think is very comparable to. Is a perfect fit, yes. He's very comparable to Davante Adams. I wouldn't quite say his talent is at that level quite yet. And, every rookie has their down year. People were knocking on Davante Adams in 2014 when they drafted him.
And 15.
And 15, yes. When they drafted him with, I think, the 53rd pick in 2014. So I think with Chris Olave, with Treylon Burks, and maybe even George Pickens out of Georgia, people are going to have their knocks on them. George Pickens was coming off an ACL injury. He only played 3 games this last season, but he did show out at the championship game against Alabama. So, there's pros and cons with all these wide receivers. And at the 22 pick, I wouldn't be, to be quite honest, but I wouldn't be really surprised if Goody just doesn't trade back and maybe gain maybe another second round pick.
Well, let me jump to the next. Let me jump to the next two real quick here, Dan, because we just talked about two dudes who are going to slide that you think if they're there at 22 are worth the pick. Let's say Goody doesn't do what you're saying, sticks there at 22. Let's say Burks and Olave are gone. I'd be very upset because Olave's been my pick since last fall. But who are the two guys that in your mock drafts, your 35 mock drafts that you have done, who are the two that you expect to be there at 22? That wouldn't be a reach. That wouldn't be a little bit of luck that they slid. Like, who are the two common answers when you get to Green Bay in your mock drafts?
I have one. I have Travis Jones, defensive interior lineman out of Connecticut. And when Packer fans are listening to this podcast or watching it, I think maybe 60% of them are going to explode in excitement, and the other 40% are going to be booing. Yeah, we need another wide receiver. All we have is Sammy Watkins. All we have is Sammy Watkins. Never Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, exactly, right? 20 years. Oh, no. Well, the Travis Jones, I've been a Packers fan since probably 96. not showing my age or anything, but I'm only 31.
It's okay.
But but watching the Packers over the years, their run defense is, it could be really great, it can be really low, it could be, just quite right, it could be, it's just subpar every other year. And speaking of Packers Twitter, I've been listening and watching people saying how Kenny Clark needs help, or Devontae Campbell can't do everything. Speaking of, he really got snubbed out of the Pro Bowl this past season, but that's an only can of worms I'll open up another day.
Different podcast,
yes. But with Kenny Clark being drafted in the first round and getting the extension, they believed in him. And with Travis Jones, I think he can be the do-it-all defensive interior lineman. You think of people that are just there for run blocking plays or just pass rushing. With Travis Jones and Kenny Clark, I think the middle of the defensive line is shored up. And with Dean Lowry, I think he's still on the team. Actually, I'm brain farting right now.
Pretty much, I think he is. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
We'll go with that. So as a depth piece, and with Travis Jones starting there next to Kenny Clark, with Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith on the outside, that defensive line is really, really shored up with pretty good depth actually. And with Devontae Campbell and Chris Barnes as the linebackers, that run defense will be terrific. And with Dalvin Cook, they got DeAndre Swift, they have David Montgomery.
David Montgomery is a good running back.
The division is full of great running backs. So
it's like the AFC West has all these great quarterbacks. The NFC North has all these great running backs.
Exactly, and then the AFC North has the great wide receivers.
Yeah. Yes.
So, or maybe the NFC West, you can argue that. But
everywhere but Green Bay has great wide receivers, Dan. That's the truth right there.
Exactly. So with Travis Jones, I think you can shore up that defensive line quite well, and I fully expect him to be there at 22. But honestly, I've been listening to ESPN Radio and a lot of other places, and they're saying this mock draft. I've been doing too many mock drafts. This NFL draft is going to be really unpredictable. Even the first unpredictable NFL draft in years.
But yeah, because everything I've read, and I think we're probably reading some of the same articles, it's not a very special draft. There's not a lot of top end talent. Like last year, especially at the quarterback spot, you knew 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks were going to go in the first round. 5 win in the first 15 picks. That ain't happening this time. I mean, there might not be a quarterback taken till 20. I'd expect Carolina to do something at 6, but there might not be anybody until the Steelers take one at 20. And when the quarterback shine isn't there, then a draft is often deemed as subpar. And I think that's why this one is getting that rap.
Exactly. I think a side note is with Carolina at 6, they have Sam Darnold's 5th-year option.
Yeah.
And with the 2023 class being great at quarterbacks, maybe they just, quote unquote, tank and hope for maybe a Bryce Young or somebody next year.
Mm-hmm.
But just like you were saying with 2021, you had Trevor Lawrence, you had Zach Wilson, and you had either Trey Lance or Mac Jones at 3. So the first 3 were pretty much set in stone, technically with the 3rd pick. But with the 4th through the other 32 picks, it was kind of up in the air. But with the 2022 draft this year, you're looking at I've been seeing mock drafts where Aiden Hutchinson is going number 1, Evan Neal, I think is his name, at the offensive tackle, going at 1 overall. I've seen mock drafts where Jacksonville trades out of the first.
Who's the kid from Georgia that everybody's talking about? Trayvon, what's his name, going number 1 too? I mean, I'll tell you what.
Javon Walker.
I'll tell you what, man. If Jacksonville overthinks this and doesn't take Aiden Hutchinson, they're dumb. They're doing it wrong. I mean, this is a very easy slam dunk to take the best player in the NFL draft at number 1. And if he slides to Detroit at 2, it's like, this guy's perfect for that crazy-ass coach they have in Campbell. So, and a hometown kid, obviously, his dad played at Michigan. He was so fantastic at Michigan. don't overthink the top of the NFL draft this year. If you're Jacksonville or Detroit, you take Hutchinson if he's there, and if not, if he slides to 3, good Lord, just.
I think you pretty much open the doors for 2 different podcasts right there, because you can do one where, Jacksonville can stay at that first draft spot and take a Aiden Hutchinson, and make the argument whether they help Trevor Lawrence or help that defense, because I don't think they had an elite defense since 2018, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Or the different podcast is if they trade out, then
who's jumping up to get one? Who's jumping up to get Aiden Hutchinson or any of the other guys we talked about?
Exactly, yeah. So I think it's 2 different aspects of that.
Nobody's moving up to draft Kenny Pickett. Nobody's moving up to draft Malik Willis in this draft.
Yeah, exactly. And with the Green Bay Packers, like I said, I am getting my popcorn ready. I'm, maybe having a beer or 2 and watching that draft, because I am prepared for Goody to maybe even trade up again. I know that brings up PTSD for fellow Packers fans, but I think they trade up, maybe even past Philadelphia and New Orleans, because they have 4 picks, between like it's like one after the other.
Yeah.
Those next 4 picks, and quite frankly, I can see two of those draft picks being wide receivers. So if they want to get somebody like a Drake London, who is actually my other slide down player at 22, at 6'4", 219 pounds, he's very comparable to Allen Lazard as well, and he can be a really good red zone threat, aka the gold zone. And so with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball, he can, be a very reliable receiver and pass catcher to, maybe get them past between the red zone and into the end zone. But he did play basketball at USC, so he can make those contested catches. Him lining up out wide or him lining up in the slot, he can, push the defender quite off the release, maybe make a quick jerk or 2, left or right, make a quick in route, or, make a quick fade route even on the outside, and Aaron Rodgers could throw it up. You've seen it plenty of times with Devontae Adams in Dallas and back in the AT&T Stadium, actually, back-to-back plays. So throwing it up there.
Throwing all these wide receivers. Hold on, I'm going to have another beer here with you, Dan. Throwing all these other wide receivers.
I had a beer.
Yeah, you should have had one, Dan.
I'm sorry. I'm in the fridge. I'm in the man cave. Sorry. I used to have a fridge in the man cave, but it broke.
Is it even a man cave if you don't have a fridge, Dan?
I did have a fridge, but I accidentally broke the. It had a little freezer compartment in there, but with the shelf, it had that coolant.
Yeah.
What's it called?
The coil.
Yeah, the coil. I poked a hole in it because I was trying to chip the ice out of it. So
that's poor man cave management, Dan. That's what that is.
I had to save up for the next one. I'm sorry.
Of all the wide receivers, if they gamble on Jamison Williams, or they go with Drake London, or it's Olave, or if it's Treylon Burks, the one guy I feel confident saying they won't grab at 22 is Jahan Dotson. Is the guy with a very low RAS score, that RAS score that the Packers really, really take into play. I don't think, and this is probably guaranteeing he's going to be a Packer, but I don't think he fits what Green Bay is looking for from an athleticism standpoint. If they took him, and I love Menchie. I love the other wide receiver from Alabama. I think that dude is an 80-catch guy for a lot of years in this league. But I think if they reach for those 2 dudes at 22, it's a mistake. Who are 2 guys that you don't want Green Bay to reach for that people are talking about at 22?
All right, so you got me in a kind of a predicament here, because at 22 specifically, this guy would be considered a reach. And like I said earlier, he's one of my guys, which I will plant my flag on whether or not he goes to Green Bay or not. I think he will do well in the NFL, and that's Jalen Petrie, the cornerback out of Baylor. And a lot of times people are going to be saying that he's going to be playing safety in the NFL, which he can quite possibly do. But he flourished as a slot corner. And I think if the Packers draft him at 22, that will be a slight reach. And for my fantasy football players, and if you use specifically fantasy pros, platform, they give you the option like, hey, this player was a slight reach or a really big reach when you're drafting fantasy. But side note, that's of something different. But with Jalen Petrie, it's like he's basically a heat-seeking missile in the box because he has this like football IQ, like where he can drop his hips and being into coverage as a slot corner, but he keeps his eye on the quarterback and the offensive line and what everything is going on. So if he watches it while being on the receiver, watches the quarterback hand it off to the running back, he'll immediately change his stance and go after the running back and make a tackle. I've seen it plenty of times, especially against Oklahoma, and excuse me, he had an FBS high 47 defensive stops in the 2021 season, according to the Pro Football Focus. So 47 stops out of his, I think it was 53 stops total. That's quite good just in the slot corner position. So and looking over the slot corners with the Green Bay Packers over the years, they had Channing Sullivan, who was pretty okay.
He was okay. He gave me somebody paid for a cameo birthday wish from Shandon Sullivan. I was sorry to see him leave. Yeah, it was the only.
I mean, he's a terrific guy.
I ever got.
Yeah, he's a terrific guy. I was, watching his tape, and he was doing well. And I can't think of the other players that were playing as a slot corner per se, but
it's probably better that you forget them.
Yeah. So with Jalen Petrie at, we'll just go with Jalen Petrie overall, drafted by the Packers. If he's drafted by Green Bay, he can flourish at the slot corner. We've seen it at Baylor, and we can see it as, they have Joe Barry's nickel corner. He can have him staying.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, Dan, I'm going to cut you off right there. If Green Bay takes up nickel corner at 22 with the needs they have at the wide receiver spot, at the interior line, I don't even care if they take Linderbaum, the center out of Iowa.
They're going to riot, yeah.
If they draft a depth corner or a future safety right now, with the situation that the Packers and Aaron Rodgers and everything, people will lose their effing minds.
And that's the thing, too, is why I'm calling it a reach, but also not a reach because it's also a position of need. So if you're talking specifically at the 22 spot, I don't expect them to draft Jalen Petrie, and I think that would be considered a reach.
Okay.
But if they draft him in sort of maybe if
is it a reach at 28? Is Petrie a reach at 28?
You got me there. But I think with 28, yeah, I think
let's say they get Olave at 22. Everybody's happy. I don't know too many people that are pissed about that. Let's say they get Olave at 22 and Petrie at 28. I'm still not thrilled with it, even though I don't know who is still on the board at 28, but I'll listen to it. At least they filled in. It's kind of like a short-term, long-term pair of picks if that's the direction they go.
And speaking of what we were mentioning earlier, like I was doing, 35 to close to 40 mock drafts on the PFF simulator. One of those mock drafts, not one of them, multiple ones, but on those mock drafts, I was doing Chris Olave or Treylon Burks at 22, a wide receiver at 22, but then also Jalen Petrie at 28. And then I was also coming around to pick 53 was, I think, Abraham Lucas, the offensive tackle.
Listen, you do 47 mock drafts. Your brain gets a little mush when you're trying to remember school, position, 40 time, cone time, height, weight, all that stuff. I cut you some slack, Dan. I mean, we're less than 50 hours from the draft. Your brain's probably on a little bit of a mush streak right now.
Washington State.
Wazoo.
So, yeah, there we go. But no, I've been able to pick up Abraham Lucas at 53 and a possible, edge rusher, a linebacker, maybe even Leo Chanel out of Wisconsin.
From Wisconsin, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll be able to pick him up at 53 and 59 because I think Chris Barnes is a 2023 free agent. I'm not sure, but don't quote me on that. But kind of you're recording. But anyways, I think with Jalen Petrie at 28, it's not considered quite a reach. I would consider it maybe as a slight reach, because if at 28 you find somebody else that you think will fill a bigger position of need, then I'll be okay with them drafting that person as well.
Yeah.
But with Jalen Petrie, if they draft him in like maybe 34 or 35, and they, say they're on the clock at 28, and they don't find anybody that they would be considered the best player available, then they would trade back to maybe 35 or 36. And at that point, I think he would be just fine at that spot.
Who else is a reach besides Petrie, the corner from Baylor? You have another guy that you're seeing on boards that just doesn't make sense to you at 22, maybe at 28?
I am very sorry. My headphones just died.
You're fine. I hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you're good.
Question?
Is there anybody else that if they took at 22, you would say that is a reach, that you're seeing pop up on a lot of these other mock drafts, maybe some that you're seeing and doing, that may not be a reach at 28?
I think when I was mentioning him earlier, Abraham Lucas, I think he is a prime example of somebody you can draft and then just plop him right in a right tackle. I think if they draft him or maybe even Trevor Penning in the first round at 22 or maybe even 28, I think will be a reach, because offensive tackle, yes, it can be, a big position of need outside of wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers to draft. But if you're looking at it, every position of need that they have, you're looking at safety, you're looking at offensive tackle, you're looking at wide receiver, you're looking at maybe an edge rusher, maybe even another linebacker. I think with, maybe Trevor Penning, Tyler Smith, you can put them in there, or Abraham Lucas. I think you can wait and find better value with the offensive lineman. Because with Josh Myers, I think he was a second-round pick, if I'm not mistaken, a couple years ago.
Is there when we're running through all these positions of need, tight end doesn't come up, and I don't know where you stand on Robert Tonyan. Obviously, Mercedes Lewis is 112 years old, but Aaron loves him, so he's got to stick around. I can't get rid of that guy whatsoever. Do you think that they go tight end at any point? I mean, there's no Kyle Pitts in this year's draft. There's nobody that's a top 10 pick worthy at that position. But do you think that in round 2, 3, or 4, Green Bay looks for a young tight end?
I think they don't quite look for a young tight end just yet, because I think Robert Tonyan was on the franchise tag, I believe, and Josiah DeGuara is a great tight end.
Can't stay healthy. Can't stay healthy, Dan.
You can't stay healthy. That's the thing, though. But I think with offensive linemen, you can find value at the tight end position in the later rounds of the draft. I mean, if you're looking at Jelani Woods, if you're looking at Trey McBride might be probably there. Then if they're looking at the tight end position in general, I'm saying they would probably have to draft him quite early. So I think with Trey McBride or Greg Dulcich, they would have to draft him then a little earlier. But with Jelani Woods or Isaiah Likely out of Coastal Carolina, I think you can find them in the later rounds and then develop them. And because just like I've learned with fantasy football too, with the players that are playing in the NFL, and as an NFL standpoint, tight ends take a couple years to develop. I mean, with Robert Tonyan, he was an undrafted free agent, and just drafted or signed him, and look what he's done so far. So I think with the tight end position, it's a premium position both in the NFL and fantasy football, because if you're drafting him high, then you'll lose out in value in the other positions, aka wide receiver or offensive tackle. So when you're looking at it, you sort of have to rank with, if comparing with what the value is and what the immediate impact is, along with who's going to be a free agent in 1 or 2 years. you're filling in a position of need, but also drafting the best player available. So if you're looking at, Treylon Burks or Trey McBride, I would definitely go Treylon Burks instead, because not only does it fill a need in the wide receiver position, but he can provide a great value and impact on day one.
All right, Dan, pen to paper before we get out of here. Who is it going to be at 22, and who is it going to be at 28? This is your entire reputation, Dan. Throw your dart at the board, and let's see how your legacy continues. Dan Edwards from Wisconsin Sports Heroics, Pro Football Focus. Who do the Green Bay Packers take at 22, and who do they take at 28?
Bernard Raymond. No, I'm just kidding. I think with...
You could have said anything besides quarterback, and we'd be okay with it.
Hey, maybe there's a Jordan Love around here somewhere. But no, I don't think they'll draft a quarterback.
No.
Hopefully. But I think at 22, lock it in. I think it will be Chris Olave.
All right. Chris Olave. And I would love that. Dan, I hope you're right. And I hate Ohio State. But that dude to me is the stud wide receiver in this draft.
They are – you can look at Ohio State, USC, Alabama, and maybe factor in LSU as just the wide receiver factory, that would just produce wide receivers left and right.
Yeah.
And I think at 28, I think they go Travis Jones. I think with Sky Moore, one person I haven't mentioned yet, who is another my guy, I think he and Jalen Petrie would be a reach at 28. But also I think Sky Moore, he's kind of like that Julian Edelman comparison, playmaking ability, playing out of the slot, can do a quick slant, take the linebackers out of place. I think he would be a quite slight reach at 28 and along with Jalen Petrie, but also at the same time, they would fill in positions of need for the Packers in the long term and short term. So at 22, I think will be Chris Olave. And at 28, I think they go Travis Jones, a defensive interior lineman.
All right. Be happy and mad, Packers fans. I guess. I don't know. Packers fans are just going to hate everything unless they wind up with, the two best players coming out of this draft.
Every year, Super Bowl or bust, and then they're happy, then they're unhappy. It's, I can only do so much. They can only do so much. So hopefully you guys like me still, and hopefully I'm right too.
Well, Dan, listen, it's throwing a dart at a board. It is. Right. I mean, there are so many possibilities. You don't even know what position. You don't even know which side of the ball they're going to attack with either one of these two draft picks. So if you're wrong, it'll be okay. I'd still love to have you back on the podcast to talk about the draft and look what Green Bay did, who they took, who they didn't take. If you'd love to come back, we'd love to have you here.
I would love to come back. Yes, I had a great time here, especially for my first podcast. So I appreciate it and honor you, Mike Wickett, on here. So I would love to come back and talk about the first round and future rounds to come. And I haven't asked you yet. What do you think if Goody will trade back or trade up for somebody in the first round? What do they have if he actually trades one of those two picks?
I have learned from watching the Packers draft for nearly 20 years, if you have high expectations, you're going to be tremendously disappointed by what comes out on paper that day. So, nobody was high on Rashawn Gary. I was like, well, everybody hates the Rashawn Gary pick. It's going to be a great selection.
I was a Rashawn Gary truther from the start.
He just never hit his potential at Michigan, and we're seeing what he does now in the NFL.
People were knock on him because, Zadarius Smith was out the entire year. Then Rashawn Gary all of a sudden has this tremendous season. I'm just like, no, he had this talent from the start at Michigan. And one person I didn't even mention was David Ojabo.
Oh, if he's there, how early would you? Oh, I know we got to get out of here.
I can talk all day for Packers. So
how early would you take Ojabo, who busted his ACL at the pro day?
I would take him honestly no later than the 53rd pick.
I'd be okay with that. I would not.
53rd, I would take him there. If not, if it's like I said, they trade back and the person they were hoping was there at like 36 or 37 wasn't there. So like they were trading back to get Jalen Petrie or trading back to get, and then the Kobe Dean or something.
Oh, now you're talking my language here, Dan. If they walk out of this draft, and I'll take Dean at 22, I'll go Christian Watson at 28, the kid from North Dakota. And then if I can get Ojabo at 53, and I know I can't use him right away, and if I can somehow squeeze Mechie at 59, build a statue for Goot. This is the greatest draft ever.
I think that's the perfect draft pick too with Ojabo because you have Rashawn Gary, Michigan alumni too as well, and Preston Smith on the other side. With Ojabo recovering from his injury, he can be a depth piece along with Tene. I can't remember his name, who subbed in for.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Starts with the G, and the last name starts with the G. I can't. And if you're watching this, I'm sorry, but
that's okay.
Who, if he recovers, between weeks 3 and 5.
That's fine. If I don't get him till after Halloween, that's fine. I know that guy can play.
I know he can play too because I'm a Big Ten fan living in Arkansas. So I still got my Big Ten games. I watched the SEC games with Treylon Burks, and I was just watching football 24/7. So with Ojabo, if they draft him with the 53rd pick and say Abraham Lucas at the 59th pick, if he's still there, I'd be set too as well.
Well, we have our wish list there, which means Goot will draft none of them, and we will sit around pissed off on Sunday afternoon looking back like, why didn't they take this guy?
It's like in every other circle. They draft night, they have the expectations after round 1, they have their issues, and then come week 1, they have other expectations, and then it just continues where they'll fall in love with the players, and then week comes up again, and then it's never-ending circle.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for coming on, man. You can read his stuff at wisportsheroics.com. Follow him on Twitter at PackerEddie_55, and he does some great work over at Pro Football Focus as well. Dan Edwards, my guest this week on the podcast. Thank you again, Dan, for coming on.
Real quick, it's not 55, it's just PackerEddie_FF. So FF is for fantasy football. I still do fantasy football takes. I haven't been tweeting about them as often, but I can honestly answer any fantasy football questions that you may have, or any other topics of choice that you may have questions or type or tweet, and I will kind of get off the draft aspects and then talk about the draft reviews after the first and second rounds.
Well, I appreciate you correcting me. At PackerEddie_FF. And Dan, I lost to my wife in the fantasy football championship at work, so I'm going to be hitting you up because this can never happen again.
Hey, I'm your man.
He is Dan Edwards. Read his fine work again, wisportsheroics.com. This has been Wickett on Wisconsin. I'm Mike Wickett. As always, until next time, enjoy the draft. Go Pack, go Bucks, and go Brewers.